I was born August the 10th, 1918. And my parents were Lester Poole. My mother's name was Octa Chase, her maiden name. And the reason I was born where I was because I wanted to be near my mother. Born St. Mary's. And went to school for St. Mary's, and when I got out of school, I went to work for the Chevrolet garage, parts manager and bookkeeper, and made all of $13 a week, and got married when I was making $13 a week. All groups used to go from people from Sisterville, Payton City, New Martinsville, and all. They had to come down, maybe down to St. Mary's and meet some girls, you know, just one way or another. And I was with some boys one night, and we went up to Payton City and met these girls. Grandma was in one of the bunch, and the guys told him, he said, "Aren't bashful," said, "You can never get anything from him." She said, "Oh, I'll take care of it." I was 21 and she was 22.
Yeah.
And she looked like she was about 15, and I looked like I'm 22. But anyway, we went to Russell, Kentucky, got married because you didn't have to wait on your license and everything there. You could just go down and get it, and they'd take care of it. You could get married right there. She told her parents that she was coming down to my house and stay the weekend, and I told my parents that I was going up to her house to stay the weekend. And what we did, we drove down to Russell, Kentucky, and got married and drove back. Went to work for Hercules Powder Company. This was during the war, 1940. I did that from 1940 to 1944, and there was 23,000 people working there at this Hercules Powder Company plant, and I was supervisor over the poacher and blender section of the powder plant. After 4 years, they told me I had better get out of there because I was working shift work and it was about to do me in. So I left there and came back went to Payton City where Faye's parents were, and I got a job in pottery, and paid pretty good. But I worked there for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. But it was going broke about that time, starting to go broke. Oh, the guy that I worked for, Owen Slider, they called him Peckerneck. Anyway, I never thought about that. He ran off with the girl that was the finisher, they call it. That's where she cleaned it all up and dusted and everything. And I figured up there one day that I was walking 16 miles a day, and the temperature was 140 degrees in this place where I had to take and we were making gravy plates, making a big thing, and the piecework. And when he left, and another guy took that job over, and I told the lady, she was a big shot around there, that I said, "Hey, you're not paying us right." She said, "Well, now how would you know? You haven't been here very long." She said, "You're trying to tell somebody, you know, what they're doing?" And I said, "Well, I know that we're getting overpaid." "Well," she said, "no, they would never do that." So she came around and she said, "Well, I wanted to tell you fellas that you've been getting overpaid." And said, "We're going to have to take it out of your check." And I said, "You're not taking it out of my check." I said, "I told you that you were overpaying us." And she said, "Well," said, you'll have to." I said, "No, I said,
We'll just have to fix it moving forward.
I'll just go somewhere else." And So I did. I was kind of wanting, that was a tough job. I would come home in the evenings, sometimes and just open the front door and fall on the floor. I was all in. And it wasn't healthy anyway. The dust, see, that's made out of clay, and that dust off that clay and all, it just wasn't a really good place to work. Started a restaurant in St. Mary's with another guy, and that was a mistake. That was in 1946 to 1949, I believe, or 1950. I found out he was going up to the pool room and losing $30 and $40 a day at shooting pool, and he thought he could shoot pool, and he couldn't at all. But other people were telling me, and that restaurant business is the worst thing I ever ran into, I think. Then I went to work at the power company, Allegheny Power. That's the only job that I'd had up to that time that I planned on keeping if I could. So I worked there for 30 years and retired in 1980. And during the war there, I was working in the powder plant, and probably, well, there's different reasons they would defer people. You know, of course, I had the 2 children who were born during that time, and let's see. Oh, my draft board in St. Mary's had the powder company requested that they defer me, and I didn't even know it. That'd been deferred. I came back to St. Mary's and I said, when are they going to call me to go in service? And she said, well, we've already had 2 deferment requests that we granted. And I said, well, I don't want another one because all my friends are already going in service, and I don't think it's right that they're going and I'm still here. So they said, well, they'd call me the next time. They called me, and I had what they call it, fall in the stomach, they called it. And anyway, they questioned me, and the guy asked me, that there at the draft board, said, how do you feel about going to service? I said, well, I'm not crazy about going or anything. I don't lie to you, but I said, I'm no better than the next guy, and it's my turn. Well, he said, that's a pretty good way of feeling about it. And a little bit, they said, the bus for Pulaski, said everybody get buses leaving now. I said, hey, I'm supposed to be on that bus. And he said, did they call your name? And I said, no. He said, well, they don't want you. So in a couple of weeks, I got a letter. And then, I guess that was the end of that. In 1942, our son Kim was born in the Little Scale Hospital in Roanoke, Virginia. And in 1944, Tanya was born, brother, in Radford. They'd built a new hospital, and she went to the hospital there in Radford. People just didn't have, you know, including us. And I remember one time something happened, I don't know what, Dad had an awful temper. And he said, I just can't understand it. He said, I pray about it every day, I talk about it all. And he said, it just seems like nothing ever goes right. Well, and then Mom would get to talking to him and get him settled down. And, so if it hadn't been for her, we'd have never gotten along. Yeah, but I don't know anything about it because practically everybody around us was the same condition we were in. And I thought, well, this is just the way it is. And it was. That was just the way it was. And when I was 9 years old, my uncle lived in Bingo Junction, and he worked at the steel company, and they found out he couldn't hear, so they let him go. But he had saved some money, and he bought a barge and a motorboat and a couple of John boats, and some bed suckered him into getting those and taking the boats from Mingo Junction down, that's up around Wheeling, down to Marietta, and then getting on the Muskingum River and going back north on it. So we were 3 miles, I believe it was, north of Zanesville. And the shanty had a shanty boat too. And they moved them all up there. Then I got on a train, I guess, in the morning, early one morning, and got off at Wheeling, and my uncle picked me up, took me over, and they took me out to where Dad was on this shanty boat. And we were going to get rich, digging mussel shells out of the river. And I think that summer, both of us together made $50 for the 3 months that we were there. Well, that wasn't anything. I mean, $50, even if that was all you had and all, it would be last for a little while, not very long, but it would be tough. But my uncle had to give my family, I'm sure he was giving my mother money to help them, or they couldn't have made it. Because my mother could take an old rag and make a nice dress out of it or something like that. And so we were there all summer, and to explain how that worked and all, it would take probably half an hour to tell you. But we lived on the shanty boat in the river there, and we'd go up the river and then let this thing drag from the boat down behind us, and then you had to raise that up and put it on the side of the boat and take the shell, the mussels. They don't bite like a fish or anything. Anything that goes by them, they just grab it, open up, and then they close on it. And then you had to take them down and throw them in a big tub, put a fire under it, cook them, throw the shells, or keep the shells and threw the meat in the river. And we didn't know, but that meat was a delicacy. It wasn't, excuse me, at that time people didn't realize it. Now it is. And we could have been eating those mussel shells, and where we were living on wild strawberries and groundhog or anything we could get. And so the next year then, my uncle, he was always getting wild ideas. Well, before Dad and I left over there, have you heard of this Longaberger Basket Company? Mm-hmm. Well, Glenn Longaberger ended up being a good friend of my dad and I, and he would come down once in a while and see us. He was the only one who ever saw us, except to bum along the railroad track once in a while. But Glenn and Dad and Glenn and my uncle took the boats. Glenn Longberger paid for Dad and I built a nice building so they could store everything. And Glenn Longberger, that belonged to us then, and he kept the boats. I think they'd be sold some of them or something, I don't know. And the next summer then, my uncle and aunt had moved over to Dresden. That's where Longaberger Basket is now. And I went over and stayed with him. My uncle was telling me, one day they had an outside toilet, and I was out there, and he came in, and he said, I was looking at a Sears catalog. That was their usual toilet paper. And he said, I was looking at bicycles. He said, I'll tell you, he said, when this summer's over and all these crops get ripe, he said, I'll buy you the best bicycle you can get. He had to borrow money to send me home on because it was dry and never rained all summer. And but that was just the kind of luck he had. Him and Dad couldn't be together 10 minutes without ready to fight. I got along with him good. Him and his wife. They got a divorce. And then they remarried again. They didn't have any children.
So how long did you know Glenn Longaberger?
Well, He just died about, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Did you ever talk to him anymore, or?
I didn't. I think Dad didn't. In fact, he came to our house one time. Well, he and a motorcycle group came there one time, and then he came to, that was my Uncle Howard. He came to his funeral, and oh, he didn't like his wife for some way. She pulled some kind of a deal. I don't know what it was on somebody. Howard's wife's the one that pulled the dirty deal, I guess. And he didn't like her at all. And I got a letter from a lawyer after he died and said that everything that he had was left to me. And, well, Aunt Sophie was treating me all right and all. I didn't, and then she remarried, you know. So I just turned that paper over on the back and said I don't want anything to do with it, and sent it back. Felt better about it.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to tell you, Glenn Longerberger was mad at me, I think, for doing that. He didn't think that I should have let her have it because he said he knew that Uncle Howard didn't want her to have it. He wanted me to have it. But it didn't amount to much anyway.
Yeah. Wow.
Now it was tough. I'll tell you, there was times, this wasn't very often, but times I've laid in the bed, upstairs in the bed, and looked up through the crack and see the moon shine. It rained sometimes and it came in. In fact, when we came back from down in Virginia, I was broke. We lived with Faye's people for a while, and we moved what we had back up, and that guy charged $75 for moving that 300 miles up there and unloading it. No, $75. No, that's when I went to work at the the pottery.
Okay.
Her dad and I were the best friends. We hunted together and fished together and got along real well.
So what all would you hunt?
Rabbits mostly.
Yeah.
Squirrels once in a while. And then moved down to the upper end of St. Mary's. And that house paid $25 a month rent. And the wind blew real hard, it blew the sand up through the floor. And I'm trying to think how long. Probably about 5 years I bought that house after we moved to St. Mary's. We rented wherever we could for a while. And then I think I either paid $3,500 or $5,500 for that house. But gee whiz, I did a lot of work on it. I dug the basement out with myself, laid the blocks, and put a new roof on it, new siding, and I did practically everything by myself.
House.
The garage was there, but it was well, it was just big enough for a Model A Ford, and I put some more length to it, about 6 foot length. You just about had enough room to get the car in, get the door open, get it out. Very little. I delivered papers from the time I was in the 2nd grade until I graduated twice a day. And I just didn't have time to get out and run around and horse around like the other boys did. Although we'd walk clear out on French Creek to go swimming. I'd deliver papers in the morning sometimes, and it was 3 miles out there. We'd walk out there, go swimming, and come back, walk back, and then deliver papers in the evening. Not think anything about it. Yeah, but this was through a newsstand. I didn't have my own business. I was working through the newsstand. Well, then there was a Pittsburgh Post, and the Pittsburgh Gazette, and the Pittsburgh Press, and the Wheeling Intelligencer, the Wheeling Register, the Cincinnati Post, Cincinnati Enquirer, and the old Charleston Gazette, and the Parkersburg News, the Parkersburg Sentinel, and the Marietta Times. 308 Barkwell Street,
And what city again? Is that St. Mary's or?
St. Mary, yeah.
Okay.
And
Is it still there now?
yeah, but the guy bought it and fixed it all up. Steve and Niles, they got the house because their mother stayed there and dad stayed there and took care of my grandmother, or was taking care of my mother, I mean. And so we just let them take the house. Well, Steve and Niles was going to give the house to somebody that they knew that needed it real bad, that might take care of it. And it was in bad shape. So this guy from Washington, D.C., his wife's sister lived in the house next door to that, and they came and looked at the house, and they wanted it. They gave him $40,000 for it. Well, that was pretty good money at that time, you know. And so Steve and Niles, they kind of split up on different ones, and if they needed something, or they did in our family anywhere, where they'd help pay for it or pay for it or something. I thought that was pretty good. I had an aunt and uncle and two cousins. We were kind of close till we grew up some. Then we weren't too close. His name was my dad's half sister, and her name was May Poole, and her husband's name was Vic Scott, and Louis Scott was her son, and Catherine Scott was her daughter.
And they were your cousins?
Yeah, they were. And I'm trying to think. Of course, Steve and Niles, and they had a half brother, Joe, and their father and mother all lived there in St. Mary's. But Joe was a professor at UCLA, and Steve was a professor at Marshall. And his wife was a professor at Marshall. She was from Madrid, and so Steve and his wife wanted my sister, Mary Louise, to go over to Madrid with them and visit, you know, because Steve's wife's name was Mary Carmen. Her mother lived in Madrid, owned apartments and all. And she said she wouldn't go unless Faye and I went. So we got to go to Madrid a couple of times and visit over there, and really had a nice time. Well, Faye came up with Kim, and nobody ever heard of the name Kim before. But now, you know, the Chinese and all there, half of them named Kim. But we didn't know that, and she didn't know it, so she said that was what they're going to name him. Then Tanya, that wasn't of her age, well, Faye said she wanted new names, and that's where Tanya got her. But there's Tanya spelled several different, T-A-N-I-A and T-O-N-Y-A, and hers is T-A-N-Y-A. Tanya Sue and Dwight Kim. Well, Trevor's was named after Jackie's father, Ward. His name was Trevor Ward. People were supposed to be so honest and all. And this one guy got up. I was a Mason. I don't know whether they still am or not. They said if you want a Mason, you're always a Mason. And I said, well, I must be one then, because I never go or never pay any dues or nothing. Because I found out that there's a bunch of crooks were Masons. But don't ever say that I said that. It'd hang you.
Yeah.
But this one guy got up one night and he said, if I ever did anything wrong or anything to anybody, I'd like to know who it is. I started to get up. You know, I better just sit down and forget it or I'll be in trouble. And I didn't think much of that guy after that either.
Anything?
Well, the first thing was Spain. That's the first time I'd ever been on a plane. We went over to your place, took a plane from there to Kennedy, and then went on to Madrid. And stayed in her mother's apartments. And then one day we'd rent a car and go around to Madrid and places like that. And the next day we'd rent it and go on a trip. And we got to see a lot, and it was nice. And see, the next time, if I remember right, we went to Portugal and took the train from there to her mother's apartments. And then we went on to Madrid and stayed another week or 10 days, something like that. Just had an enjoyable time. Directly to Seattle, I guess. And met your dad and mother, and then met Kim and Jackie there, and then we rented a car and went all up Vesuvius, Mount Vesuvius there. And it was about the 4th of July and hot, and got up there and the snow was about that deep in places. And well, anyway, we had a real good time going around, just driving around and staying at the bed and breakfast, and things like that. And then when we come back, why, Kim and Jackie had to be back sooner, so they went on back, and we stayed a little longer. Oh, we went up, what's that gorge or river or out of Portland, not Maine, but Portland.
Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Went up that river, clear up into Canada, and came back to Halifax, I'm pretty sure it was, and took the ferry over to, I wish I could think of names. Someplace there anyway, and the next time, what was funny in Portugal, we stayed in a hotel for a while, and I up in the 3rd story, and I looked down, and the people had dogs there, but they had to have them on a leash. Nobody like that either. Because this woman, she was all dutied up, fancy as could be, you know, and she had a little poodle dog of some kind, and it must have been in heat, because she come over, was trying to get the trunk lit up on her car, and the dog's in there, and these 2 big old hounds was trying to get to the little dog, and she was just, oh, I feel so sorry for her, but there's nothing I could do. And finally, though, she got them separated. Yeah. I just about quit telling them. That did remind me of one about those dogs. Said the dogs were fastened together. And this woman said, Johnny said, I'll give you $25 if you can get those dogs separated. So he just went over and raised up the dog's tails, jammed his finger, and it took off running. She said, how did you know that, Johnny? He said, oh, that's Mr. Jones's dog. Said, I've known him for years, and said, he can dish it out, but he can't take it. One more, and I'm going to quit now, but I swore I was going to quit telling. This little boy went down the street one day, and this woman's dog was running loose there and he knew that she didn't allow it out. So she went and knocked on the door, and he said, Mrs. So-and-so, he said, I saw your dog down the street. He said, it was running loose, and I knew you didn't allow it, so I thought I'd better come and tell you. She said, well, I'll tell you, John. I said, we had beans for dinner. He said, that dog ate a lot of beans, and said it has gas on the stomach. So he was gone. He came back in a little while, and he said, lady, he said, I saw your dog down the street again. He said it was out of gas, and the other dog we showed at home.